The village of Kavira nestled quietly between rust-red hills, its narrow dirt paths winding through dust-covered roads leading back to modest homes. Here people were used to doing without electricity, without clean water, without enough food. But the most painful scarcity of all was that of humanity. In a crumbling tile-roofed house at the heart of the village lived a young woman named Mira, 21 years old, skinny, dark-skinned, yet with eyes deep like someone who had lived through too much loss. Mira's mother had passed away when she was just 16. Since then, the already poor home had grown colder. Her father, Mr. Robert, once a kind and hard-working farmer, had turned into a drunken, aggressive, and indifferent man after his wife's death. And as if to bury the grief, he remarried a widowed woman, Vivian, who did not attempt to hide her hatred for Mira. To her, Mira was nothing but a burden, a shadow that reminded her of the woman who once rightfully held her husband's love. Every day for Mira started at 4 a.m. She had to fetch water from the village well, start the fire to cook, then go to the fields, planting sweet potatoes, pulling weeds, hauling water for the vegetables. When everyone else took a midday rest, Mira still crouched under the sun. In the evening, she swept the yard, washed the dishes, cleaned the house, then curled up on a torn mat placed near the kitchen door, where the heat and smell of oil seeped into her sleep. The entire village of Kavira knew Mira's situation. Some secretly gave her a few sweet potatoes, a bundle of salt. Some pitied her, but feared Mr. Robert's temper too much to speak up. Mira became a shadow, faint, ignored, unprotected in a withered countryside. That autumn, a stranger appeared in the village. Leo, in his mid-20s, lean but strong, dark-skinned, with sharp, quiet eyes. He asked to work for Mr. Robert, clearing weeds, digging soil, hauling water, harvesting sweet potatoes. Any task, no matter how hard, he accepted without complaint. His shirt was torn at the shoulders. His shoes had holes in the soles, but he never said a word. Villagers whispered, "He's probably from the city, lost his job, now back to the countryside to work." For 3 months straight, Leo wasn't paid a single penny. Mr. Robert kept postponing. "Next week, once I sell the sweet potatoes, I'll pay you." Leo said nothing, just kept working silently. Mira saw him every day, working under the sun, cutting bananas, carrying straw, wiping sweat with his sleeve. But she never dared speak to him. Her father had warned her, "Don't let me catch you eyeing that hired hand." One sweltering afternoon, just as the sun began to dip behind the bamboo grove, Leo walked into the yard looking exhausted, his shirt soaked with sweat. "Mr. Robert, I came today to ask for my wages from the past 3 months. I need the money to return home." Mr. Robert sat with one leg propped on a chair, a nearly burnt cigarette between his lips, his eyes hazy. Vivian sat beside him, peeling sweet potatoes, glancing at Leo with disdain. "Money? I told you, I don't have any. Want money? Wait till the crop sells." Leo clenched his fists, his voice tight with restraint. "I've waited 3 months. I have to leave. Please pay me." Mr. Robert looked around the yard. His gaze paused on Mira. She was bent over sweeping leaves, her shirt damp with sweat, her hair messy. Then he chuckled, a laugh that sent a chill down Leo's spine. "You want money? Then take that girl in exchange." Leo froze. "Take what?" "Mira, she's useless. No one wants her. Take her, and that'll be your pay." Mira heard every word. The broom dropped from her hand. Her face went pale. Her lips trembled. "Father, what are you saying? I'm not a piece of property." "Shut up," Robert barked. "You should be thankful someone's even willing to take you." Vivian crossed her arms, smiling. "Good. One less mouth to feed. The sooner she leaves, the better." Mira collapsed to her knees on the dusty ground, tears streaming down her face. She clasped her hands, pleading, "Please, Father, don't send me away like this." But no one looked at her with compassion. Leo for a moment stood still, silently staring at the girl before him. Tearful eyes, tangled hair, a weathered face. But there was something about Mira, something beautiful not in her appearance, but in her spirit, in the silent endurance she carried, in her uncomplaining resilience. He turned to Robert and spoke quietly but firmly. "I accept. Mira left the home she once called family with nothing but a black plastic bag holding a few worn clothes. There were no hugs, no goodbyes. Only her half-brother Sammy stood behind the fence, crying and waving goodbye. Mira turned away, heart heavy, tears blending into the wind. In her mind, there was only one silent prayer. Dear God, if this man is just like my father, then please deliver me from this life. But if he is kind, please let me live just once, as a human being. The sun had disappeared behind the hills, leaving behind a faint red smear across the gloomy sky. Mira sat curled up in the back seat of a small pickup truck, climbing uphill, layers of red dust coating the window. Leo sat in the front, hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on the bumpy road. Both remained silent. Mira clutched a worn black bag to her chest. Everything she had after nearly 20 years in her biological father's house. No memories, no photos, no goodbyes. Every time the truck jolted over a pothole, Mira flinched. She stared out the window, the fields of sugar cane and sweet potatoes drifting past like fragments of memories being left behind. A past full of pain, resentment, and loneliness. Leo continued driving silently, but his eyes occasionally glanced at Mira in the rearview mirror. He knew she was scared, not just by the unfamiliar city, but by the uncertainty ahead. She had no idea where she was going or what awaited her. She didn't even truly know the man driving her. After more than 4 hours, the truck turned onto a paved road lined with bougainvillea and pale lavender bushes. A black iron gate appeared ahead. Leo pulled over, stepped out, and knocked 3 times. A woman's voice called from inside. "Who is it?" "It's Leo." The iron gate slowly opened, revealing a completely different space, clean, quiet, and full of greenery. Mira's eyes widened in disbelief. A white villa stood in the center of the property, a winding stone path curving around carefully trimmed rose bushes. In the right corner stood a small fountain, gently trickling water. The air was filled with the light scent of greenery, a world away from the grimy suffocation of Kavira village. Leo didn't take Mira to the villa. He walked around to the side, stopping at a smaller house, the guest house, separate but still within the property. "This is my place," Leo smiled. It was a single-story white house with brown wooden doors, a small porch, and flower pots that had been cared for. Inside were a bedroom, a small kitchen, a simple living room, and a private bathroom. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and complete, far better than anywhere Mira had ever lived. "I just got hired here as a security guard last week," Leo explained, his voice gentle. "The homeowner, Mrs. Helena, is kind. She lets me live here for free, just asking that I keep the property safe." Mira looked around and gave a small nod. She didn't know why, but she felt like she could finally breathe. No shouting, no piercing eyes, no whip cracking against her back for making a mistake. This place wasn't heaven, but it was the first time she'd been treated like a human being. Leo opened a cabinet, pulled out a simple dress, and handed it to Mira. "I bought this a few days ago. I don't know if it'll fit, but try it." Mira took the dress, her hands trembling. It was the first time a man had ever bought her clothes, not to control her, but simply out of thoughtfulness. "You don't plan to do anything to me, right?" Mira asked hesitantly, voice trembling. Leo turned to look at her, his eyes not angry, only full of understanding. "I didn't bring you here to make an exchange. I know you've suffered enough, and I'm not your father. I won't touch you unless you truly want that, when you feel safe. First, just rest. You deserve peace." Mira turned away, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. She didn't know what kind of man Leo was, but every word he said felt like stitching up an old wound torn open for too long. That first night in the city, Mira didn't dream of her father shouting. She didn't dream of the leather whip on her back. Instead, she heard crickets chirping in the garden, the wind brushing through the porch roof, and for the first time, she slept without nightmares. The next morning, sunlight sparkled through the window. Mira opened her eyes, drawn by the delicious smell of frying eggs wafting from the kitchen. "Awake? I made some breakfast. Hope you like eggs." Leo smiled. Mira smiled back, her first smile since leaving the village. They ate breakfast together in gentle silence. No one spoke of the past. No one made promises about the future. There was only the present, peaceful, warm, and something beginning to blossom in Mira's heart. Not love, but a fragile hope that maybe the world wasn't entirely cruel. 2 days after arriving in the city, Mira began to slowly adapt to the pace of life there. Every morning, she would wake up early to sweep the yard, mop the floor, water the plants, all tasks she had done back in her village. But the biggest difference was, no one shouted at her, no one made her do things with disdain, and no one treated her like a freeloader. Leo kept his promise. He worked the night shift as a security guard, came home early in the morning, then took a short nap. When he woke up, they would share breakfast and talk, slowly and gently. In that humble little house, for the first time, Mira felt what it meant to be truly listened to. That afternoon, while Mira was hanging clothes on the line, Leo approached with a long-sleeved light blue dress. "I thought you might need this. Mrs. Helena wants to meet you." Mira turned around, eyes wide. What, what should I do? I'm not used to meeting important people." Leo smiled. "Just be yourself. You don't have to try to be anything. Be kind, humble, just the way you already are." Mira hugged the dress to her chest, nodding slightly. She had never been taught how to behave in front of someone of a different class. In Kavira village, she was the lowest, the least respected. Now she was about to step into a grand villa to meet a woman of great stature, and she had nothing but a soul still bearing open wounds. That evening, they walked together down the stone path leading to the main house. Blooming hydrangeas lined both sides. Mira clenched her hands, heart pounding. The large wooden door was knocked on 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. A woman around 60 opened the door, her silver hair neatly tied back, a gentle face, and kind eyes. She wore a cream silk dress and a delicate pearl necklace. There was none of the arrogance Mira had imagined. "Good evening, Mrs. Helena." Leo bowed slightly. "This is Mira, my wife." Mrs. Helena turned her gaze to Mira, a look not of judgment, but of warmth. So this is the Mira you told me about?" The girl with sad eyes but deep ones. "Come in, dear." Mira bowed her head and stepped in, her walk hesitant. The grand villa gleamed with chandeliers, polished wooden floors, and white curtains fluttering in the breeze. To her, this place looked like something out of a fairy tale. A place poor girls like her were never meant to enter. Mrs. Helena took her hand gently, like a mother guiding her daughter. "You're a girl with grace. I knew it from the first look." Leo chose well. Mira was stunned. All her life she had only been called useless, a burden, excess baggage. This was the first time someone had said she had grace. "Consider this place your home. If you need anything, just ask. I treasure sincere people, and I believe you are one of them." Mira was speechless and could only nod quietly. A moment later, they said their goodbyes and returned to the small guest house. That night, after cleaning up the kitchen, Mira sat on the edge of the bed, gazing at the ceiling. Leo was sitting on the floor, fixing a loose cabinet handle. The air was quiet, but not awkward. Then Mira spoke softly, but her voice trembled. "Leo, can I say something?" "Of course." She looked down at her hands, her voice choked. "The day my father gave me to you, I felt like I was a piece of merchandise being thrown away. I had no value. I thought, maybe you'd treat me like a free item too." Leo looked up at her with gentle eyes. "I thought you'd hit me, order me around, or do the things I endured for more than a decade. But you didn't. You cooked, cleaned, and spoke kindly. You let me be quiet. You let me be myself." Mira's voice broke, tears falling onto her hands. "I don't know how to thank you, but I want you to know I don't regret leaving the village. I'm not afraid of the future anymore. If this is God's plan, then I accept it." Leo moved closer, sitting beside her, his warm hand gently resting on hers. "I will never hurt you, Mira. I don't want to scare you. I want to be your safe place, the one you can trust, even if the world turns its back." Then he added, like a confession long held in his heart, "I noticed you the first time I saw you at the farm. I wanted to talk, but I was afraid your father would chase me away. When he said he'd give you away in place of wages, I was shocked. But honestly, a part of me was happy, because maybe it was a door opened by fate. Mira looked up, tears still clinging to her lashes. She whispered, I can't love yet, but I don't feel like a commodity anymore. Not like a stranger in my own life. Leo smiled, a kind, patient smile. I don't need you to love me right away. I only need you to feel safe here. Love, if it comes, will arrive when your heart is ready. Mira laughed through her tears, the first laughter in years of silence. That night they sat side by side. No promises, no pressure. Just one thing was present. Trust, small, fragile, had begun to take root. Mira woke up to the soft morning sunlight slipping through the window. The roof above was still a thin tin sheet, but somehow today it looked different. Not because anything had changed, but because her heart had. For the first time in many years, she hadn't woken up from a nightmare. There were no whippings, no shouting, no echo of her mother's last sigh before passing. Instead, she heard birdsong, the gentle sizzle of oil in a pan from the kitchen, and the warm aroma of fried eggs wafting through the room. She stepped out, hair tousled, eyes still dazed from the rare deep sleep. In the kitchen, Leo was stirring sautéed greens, his silhouette calm like a gentle husband in a quiet home. Good morning. Did you sleep well? He asked, his voice as warm as early autumn sun. So well. Like I've never known real rest before, Mira replied softly, then let out a quiet laugh. After breakfast, Leo turned to her, a look on his face as if preparing a surprise. Today, I want you to meet Mrs. Helena again. Again, Mira froze. Is something wrong? No, she just wants to talk to you. I think she likes you a lot. Mira looked anxious but told herself, she has no reason to hurt me. I have nothing left to lose. This time, she wore a beige dress Leo had bought for her at the night market. It wasn't expensive, but it was gentle and fit her well. Her hair was tied neatly. When she entered the villa with Leo, Mrs. Helena was sitting in the living room with a book in her hand. Ah, you've come? Come in, Mira. Mira stepped forward and bowed slightly. Good afternoon, ma'am. Have a seat, dear. I didn't call you here to scold you, she chuckled. Leo sat quietly beside her, giving Mira's hand a gentle squeeze under the table, both to reassure and to encourage her. Mrs. Helena studied her for a few moments, then said, You know, I lost my chef a month ago. She returned to her country to be with her husband. Since then, I haven't found anyone I could trust. Mira nodded, not sure where the story was going. But these past few days, I've noticed how you help around the kitchen. You're careful, clean, and the food you prepare is delicious. But what impressed me most is your heart. Mira looked up, eyes wide. Would you like a job, Mira? As my cook. The salary isn't huge, but it's enough for you to save for something more important later. Mira stammered, her voice trembling. Are you serious, ma'am? More than ever, Mrs. Helena smiled. I like you. The way you speak, your manners, they show that you're not ordinary. You're special, Mira. Tears streamed down Mira's cheeks. She clenched her dress, trying to stay composed. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. I don't just see you. I want to lift you, because you deserve it. Mrs. Helena stood and gently took Mira's trembling hand. If you're ready, you can start tomorrow. Mira nodded over and over, tears flowing freely. That evening, back at the smaller house, Mira rushed into the room with a joy she'd never known. Leo! Leo! I got the job as head cook! Leo ran out from the other room, confused, just as Mira leapt into his arms. I'll get paid monthly. I have a job. I'm no longer just your temporary wife in a small house. Leo blinked in surprise, then burst into laughter and hugged her tightly. See? I told you. You deserve so much more. They laughed together, tears falling like two children finally touching their dreams. That night, after tidying up, Mira sat down and wrote the first few lines in a small notebook. The first day of a new future. Today I was chosen, not to be taken, but to be given a chance. For the first time, I feel I matter. As she set the pen down, Leo asked, What do you want after this job? I want to go back to school, Mira replied, eyes shining. I dropped out after high school. After Mom passed, my father wouldn't let me study, but I've never stopped dreaming of walking onto a college campus. Leo paused for a moment, then nodded. We'll find a way, step by step. You cook, I save. One day you'll wear a graduation gown, and I'll be the one clapping the loudest in the crowd. Mira laughed through her tears. You say that, and I don't even dare to dream. Leo held her hand. Then dream. You've suffered enough. Now it's time to start living. After being hired as the main chef in the villa, Mira began her busy days filled with hope. Every morning she woke up early to go to the market with the housemaid, carefully selecting vegetables, meat, and fish, as if preparing meals for someone dear. The kitchen in the villa was large, clean, and modern. Nothing like the cramped, smoky, wood-burning kitchen back in her village where she used to cook through tears. Everything was overwhelming at first, but with diligence, Mira gradually adjusted to the professional and disciplined routine under Mrs. Helena. Mrs. Helena wasn't the type to speak much, but she noticed everything. After a few days, she began assigning Mira to prepare the main dishes for dinner, and soon after, allowed her to plan the weekly menu. Mira felt like she was living in a dream, but every dream carries its shadows. And in that villa, the shadow had a name. Jason, the only son of Mrs. Helena. Jason was a man in his 30s, tall, handsome, stylish, and exuding the confidence of someone who always got what he wanted. Since Mira began working in the kitchen, he started showing up more often. At first, it was just small talk. Hey, new girl, you look pretty hard-working. That smells amazing. You made this? At first, Mira simply nodded and kept her distance, but soon she began to feel uneasy. Jason wasn't coming for the food, he was coming for her. She could tell by the way he looked at her, not with respect, but with desire. One late afternoon, while Mira was slicing vegetables, Jason entered the kitchen without warning. What smells so good? He asked, voice half playful, half serious. Soup for Mrs. Helena, Mira answered, eyes fixed on the cutting board. Jason leaned against the doorframe, staring at her intently. You know, my mother's been talking about you nonstop. Says she's never met a girl so skilled and humble. Mira didn't reply. She knew better than to act familiar, but also couldn't afford to be rude. She kept cooking as if she hadn't heard a word. Jason stepped closer, now standing just beside her. Honestly, I didn't expect a girl from the countryside to have your grace. You're not just beautiful, you're special. Mira froze. She turned slightly and said quietly, Sir, I'm cooking. Please let me focus. Jason smirked and walked out, but the last glance he gave her before leaving sent a chill down her spine. That evening, Mira sat beside Leo in their small house, her face thoughtful. Something wrong? Leo asked, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. Mira hesitated, then recounted the encounter with Jason. She described his stare, his tone, his proximity, and the suggestive remarks. Leo frowned but remained composed. Jason talks fast, but he's not a bad guy. He's just messing around. Mira looked at him, her eyes full of doubt. Do you believe that? The way he looked at me made me feel like an object. Leo was silent for a few seconds, then nodded. I understand. If he ever does anything that makes you uncomfortable, tell me. I won't let anyone hurt you. Mira nodded, though unease still lingered. It wasn't Jason she feared most. It was the possibility that Leo wouldn't believe her if things got worse. The next day, everything seemed normal. But Mira began noticing a pattern. Jason showed up exactly when she was in the kitchen. He'd always find a reason. Getting water, asking what she was cooking. But it was obvious. He didn't need water, and he wasn't hungry. On Friday afternoon, while Mira was mopping the kitchen floor, Jason came in again. This time, he didn't beat around the bush. Mira, I like you. Mira froze, her grip tightening on the mop. I'm sorry, but I'm married. Jason chuckled. Married? You mean Leo? That security guard with no future. He's a good man, Mira said firmly. Jason stepped closer. Listen, I can give you a life you've never dreamed of. Overseas studies, clothes, money, luxury cars, a house of your own. All you have to do is say yes. Mira stepped back, her voice cold. I don't need that. I've been treated like a commodity before. I escaped that. Don't bring me back. Jason scoffed and shrugged. Your loss. Just don't regret turning down your chance to change your life. He turned and left, leaving Mira standing still. Not out of fear, but because she realized her peaceful life was under threat, and to protect it, she'd have to be stronger than ever. Mira returned to the guest house that evening, her body weary and her mind in turmoil. Leo was sitting on the front porch with an old book in hand, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. But as he studied her face more closely, he immediately sensed that something wasn't right. "You're back. Was work tiring today?" Mira placed the bag of vegetables on the table without answering. A brief silence passed before she slowly walked over to Leo and sat on the wooden chair across from him, her gaze distant. "Jason came to see me again today." Leo set the book down, his brow furrowing slightly. "What did he say?" Mira took a deep breath and answered bluntly. "He said he liked me, and it wasn't just words. He made an offer." Leo remained silent, his hands clasped tightly on his knees. The wind rustled gently through the yard, stirring the leaves. "He promised me a new life, study abroad, a car, a house, money, everything. All I had to do was say yes to being his." A thick silence settled between them. Mira looked up, her voice firm. "I said no." Leo met her eyes, surprised for a moment and visibly moved. "You didn't have to say that, but thank you." Mira shook her head. "No, I do, because you need to know. I didn't say no just because you're my husband. I said no because you were the first to treat me like a human being, not something to be traded." Leo nodded slowly, then smiled gently. He stood, walked over, and took her hand, silently expressing his gratitude and respect. "If Jason says anything like that again, you tell me immediately. I won't let anyone insult you, especially not in a place that's supposed to be home." "I know, but what about Mrs. Helena? She owns everything here. I'm afraid if things escalate, everything could fall apart." Leo thought for a moment, then replied, "I'll speak to her, but only if it becomes necessary. For now, stay calm. Do your job. Don't let anyone make you question your worth, not after how far you've come." Mira nodded, comforted by his support. But things weren't that simple. The next morning, as Mira was preparing lunch in the kitchen, Jason showed up again, this time without his usual smug charm. He approached her with a cold, arrogant expression. "I don't think you understand your place here." Mira set the knife down on the chopping board and turned to face him. "You can keep your words to yourself. I'm not interested." Jason sneered. "Really? You think you can live this life with a penniless guard? You think your future lies down that path?" "I don't need a future bought with betrayal." Jason took another step forward, nearly closing the distance between them. "Watch your words, Mira. Don't make me remove your husband from this place." "Are you threatening me?" "No, I'm giving you a choice, and I'm the one who holds the power here." Mira stepped back, but her eyes no longer held fear, only defiance. "Then listen carefully. I choose the man you look down on, because he gave me something your money never will. Respect." Jason stared at her, briefly caught off guard. Then he gave a cold laugh and walked away without another word. But Mira knew. This storm wasn't over. Jason wasn't the type to take rejection lightly. That night, Mira told Leo everything. He didn't remain as calm this time. His knuckles turned white from gripping the edge of the chair. "He threatened you? And you too?" Leo stood and paced in silence. Then he stopped and looked directly into Mira's eyes. "We can't stay here much longer." "You mean we're leaving?" "I'm thinking about it. But if Jason doesn't back off, I'll choose to leave. To protect you." Mira walked over and took his hand. "Leo, I never regretted leaving the village to follow you, and I won't regret leaving this estate so long as I'm with the person I trust." Leo squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with emotion. "I promise, I'll never let anyone belittle you again. Not ever." That night, Mira wrote in her old notebook, "There were days when I wasn't allowed to choose, but today I choose myself by staying loyal, standing by my vow, and refusing to let the shadows eclipse true love." Mira returned to the guest house that evening, her body weary and her mind in turmoil. Leo was sitting outside on the porch holding an old book, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. But as he looked closely at Mira's face, he immediately sensed something was wrong. "You're home. Was work tiring today?" Mira set the bag of vegetables down on the table and didn't answer right away. A moment of silence passed before she slowly sat across from Leo on the wooden chair, her eyes gazing far into the distance. "Jason came to see me again today." Leo put the book down, his brow slightly furrowed. "What did he say?" Mira took a deep breath and spoke calmly. "He said he likes me, and he didn't just say it. He made me an offer." Leo remained still, his hands interlocked on his knees. A breeze swept across the yard, rustling the leaves. "He promised me a new life, studying abroad, a car, a house, money, everything. All I had to do was say yes to being his." A thick silence enveloped the space between them. Mira looked up, her voice resolute. "I said no." Leo looked her in the eyes, a mixture of surprise and quiet emotion. "You didn't have to tell me that, but thank you." Mira shook her head. "No, I needed to say it, because you need to know. I didn't say no just because you're my husband. I said no because you were the first person who ever treated me like a human being, not something to be traded." Leo gently nodded and smiled. He stood up, walked over, and held her hand, a silent gesture of gratitude and respect. "If Jason says anything like that again, you must tell me immediately. I won't let anyone disrespect you, especially not in a place that's supposed to be home." "I know, but what about Mrs. Helena? She owns everything here. I'm afraid if this gets out of hand, everything will fall apart." Leo thought for a moment, then replied, "I'll speak to her, only if it becomes necessary. For now, stay calm, do your job, and don't let anyone make you question your worth. Not after how far you've come." Mira nodded, feeling reassured, but it wasn't over. The next day, while Mira was preparing lunch in the kitchen, Jason appeared again, this time without his usual flirtatious tone. He walked up to her with a cold, arrogant look. "I don't think you understand your place here." Mira set the knife down on the cutting board and looked him straight in the eyes. "You can keep your words to yourself. I'm not interested." Jason sneered. "Really? You think you can survive this life with a broke security guard? You think that's your future? I don't need a future that's bought through betrayal." Jason stepped closer, nearly pressing against her. "Careful what you say, Mira. Don't make your husband disappear from this place." "Is that a threat?" "No, I'm giving you a choice, and I'm the one who holds the power." Mira stepped back, her eyes no longer filled with fear, but defiance. "Then hear this. I choose the man you look down on, because he gave me something your money never could. Respect." Jason stared at her, momentarily stunned. Then he let out a cold laugh and left without another word. But Mira knew this wasn't over. Jason wasn't someone who took rejection easily. That evening, Mira told Leo everything. This time he didn't stay calm. His grip on the armrest turned his knuckles white. "He threatened you? And you too?" Leo stood up and paced for a moment before stopping in front of her. "We can't stay here much longer." "You mean we're leaving?" "I'm thinking about it, but if Jason doesn't stop, I will leave. To protect you." Mira walked over and took his hand. "Leo, I don't regret leaving the village to follow you, and I won't regret leaving this estate so long as I'm with the person I trust." Leo tightened his grip, his eyes filled with emotion. "I promise, I won't let anyone ever look down on you again. Not anyone." That night, Mira wrote in her old notebook, "There were days when I had no say in anything, but today I choose myself by keeping my word, defending loyalty, and refusing to let the darkness eclipse true love." Mira didn't sleep all night. She tossed and turned on the small bed, her mind spinning with hundreds of thoughts. Even though Leo was there beside her, holding her hand from the moment they lay down. For the first time since arriving in the city, Mira felt truly unsafe. She wasn't afraid of Jason. She wasn't afraid of losing her job. What made Mira feel suffocated was the helplessness, when those in power could treat others with contempt, using money and status to threaten her life and the man she loved. At dawn the next day, as the sun was just breaking through, Mira was already up. She didn't go to the market as usual. No chopping vegetables, no lighting the stove. She put on a modest dress, tied her hair neatly, splashed cold water on her face to wash away the fatigue, and stepped out the door. Leo looked at her, surprised. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to speak with Mrs. Helena. I can't stay silent anymore." Leo stepped forward, intending to stop her, but Mira's eyes said it all. "This time I need to stand up for myself." He nodded, saying nothing more, except for one quiet sentence. "If things get out of hand, call me." The mansion's doors opened as they always did, but this time Mira walked in with a completely different posture. No more shrinking, no more stooping under the weight of low status. Mrs. Helena sat in the living room, holding a white porcelain teacup, the sunlight glinting off her silver hair, making her look both regal and serene. "You're here early, Mira? Not cooking today?" She smiled softly. Mira bowed politely, then got straight to the point. "Ma'am, I came today to have a serious talk about Jason." Mrs. Helena froze. The teacup tilted slightly in her hand, but she kept her face calm. "Jason? He's been bothering you again?" "It's more than that, ma'am. He's been harassing me. His words, his behavior, and even threats. He tried to buy me with money. He threatened to get my husband fired. And this time, I can't stay silent." Mrs. Helena set her teacup down, her gaze sharpening, not with anger, but defensiveness. "You might be overreacting. Jason is straightforward. Perhaps just being playful?" "No, ma'am," Mira interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "I'm a woman. I know the difference between a teasing glance and a predatory one. Jason wasn't joking. He's serious and dangerous." The air in the room grew heavy. Mrs. Helena crossed her arms, her voice lowering. "Mira, you're a good girl, truly, but sometimes even good people need to seize the opportunity." Mira frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Jason is my only son. Our family lacks nothing except a dignified wife. I see that in you." It was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over Mira. "Are you suggesting I reconsider? Become Jason's wife? It's a chance to step into a different life. Perhaps your husband, Lee, won't lose anything. I can arrange it. You'll still be able to study. Your family can be supported." Mira laughed, not out of joy, but sheer disbelief. "So you're just like my father. You think I can be exchanged, sold like an object?" "Mira," Mrs. Helena began, clearly flustered. "Ma'am, I'm grateful for your kindness toward my husband and me. I truly am. But I won't sell my soul for comfort. I'm not a girl with no choices. And if I must, I'll leave this house, this job. But I won't leave the man who walked through the darkness with me." Mrs. Helena didn't respond. Her expression turned serious, her eyes falling. "If you and Jason do not stop, Leo and I will leave. No need for money, no need for support. All we ask for is peace." Mira bowed deeply, then turned and left the mansion, her heart heavy, but her steps light. Leo was waiting outside. He stood up quickly when he saw Mira return. She said nothing, only walked over and hugged him tightly. "Are you okay? I said everything I needed to." How did she react? Like many wealthy people, she still believes money can shift everything. "But I believe I did the right thing." Leo didn't say a word, just held her close. "If we have to leave, I'll go with you." Mira looked up and smiled through her tears. "No, Leo, we'll leave together. Not because we're running away, but because we're starting over." After the conversation with Mrs. Helena, Mira expected to be fired the very next day. But strangely, no one came to speak with her, and no one mentioned what had happened. Jason completely disappeared from the kitchen, and Mrs. Helena kept her usual calm demeanor, as if the tense conversation between them had never happened. Yet it was that very silence that made Mira more anxious than ever. But she didn't say anything to Leo. They carried on with life as usual, though. They began preparing to leave. Leo had quietly found a small rental room about a 30-minute walk from the estate. It had just one sleeping area, a small kitchen, and shared bathroom facilities, but at least it would be theirs. No one could threaten or belittle them there. That evening, just as Mira finished setting the table for dinner, she saw an envelope placed on the table. No one had handed it to her. It had just been left silently outside their little house. She picked it up and opened it. Inside was a check for a large sum of money and a hastily scribbled note. "This is my final offer. Leave Leo. Choose a life more worthy." Mira clenched the paper, her heart storming. She didn't show it to Leo right away. She was afraid he'd be furious. But she knew. The time for silence was over. She stepped into the room and saw Leo sitting with his old notebook, writing something. "Leo," he looked up. She handed him the paper without a word. Leo took it, read it, and fell into silence. After a long pause, he looked at her, his voice steady. "Are you afraid?" "Yes," Mira answered honestly. "But I don't regret anything, and I won't back down." Leo smiled gently, then quietly walked over to the small cabinet in the corner. He opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a small wooden box, worn, old, clearly hidden away for a long time. He placed it on the table and opened the lid. Mira gasped when she saw what was inside, a thick stack of neatly arranged bills, as if prepared long ago. She looked at Leo, stunned and speechless, and he said, "This is money I've been saving for years, not from being a security guard. How, how do you have so much? Who are you really, Leo?" He sat down, his voice calm. "I'm sorry for keeping it from you, but now it's time to tell you the truth." Mira held her breath. "Jason isn't the owner. Mrs. Helena isn't just the lady of the house. They're my family." The world felt like it had collapsed beneath Mira's feet. She jumped up, eyes wide in disbelief. "Your family? You mean, is Jason your brother? And Mrs. Helena is your mother?" Leo nodded, his gaze steady. "That's right, it's all true. But there's something important you need to understand. I didn't come here to test you. I came here to find a safe place for myself. And I found you." Mira sat back down, still unable to speak. Leo continued, "I've been hurt before. The girls who came into my life, every one of them came for the money, for the name. I was tired of living like a walking wallet. I wanted to know if someone could love the real me, even when I had nothing." He looked into Mira's eyes, his voice softer now. "And you are the answer." Tears rolled down Mira's cheeks, not from anger, but from emotion. "So, all this time, living here, cooking, cleaning, working late, none of it was fake? Every moment was real. Only my identity was hidden. But the love, the respect, the gratitude, all of it was true." Mira wiped her tears, then whispered, "You know, my father once sold me like an object, and I thought that would follow me forever. But you made me believe I deserved to be loved, to be valued." Leo stood and took her hands in his eyes filled with sincerity. "And now I want to ask you, not as a poor husband, but as a man who loves you deeply, will you build a future with me, from now on, with no more hiding or fear?" Mira laughed through her tears. "I'm ready, but on one condition." "What is it?" "We live just as we started. No mansion, no luxury, just peace, and trust that never fades." Leo embraced her, saying nothing more. That night, for the first time, they made love. No more secrets, no more distance. Just two broken souls, finally healing together. The next morning, Mira wrote in her notebook, "They say the poor shouldn't dream, but I believe those who love deeply always have the right to dream. I didn't choose money, I chose him. And now I have the world, not in my hands, but in my heart." The next morning, Mira woke with a mix of lightness and heaviness in her heart. Since learning that Leo was Mrs. Helena's son and Jason's younger brother, part of her felt relieved, but another part was burdened with new concerns. Not because of Leo's lineage, but because she had seen with her own eyes what power could do inside that very house. To Mira, the peace they had built together felt like a fragile tent in the middle of a desert. At any moment, a single gust of wind could tear it down unless they chose to rebuild it on firmer ground. Leo was different. It was as if a weight had been lifted after months of hiding who he truly was. Last night, for the first time, he held Mira with a heart that no longer needed to conceal anything. "You don't have to pretend to be poor anymore," Mira teased. I never pretended. I just chose a simpler life. Leo smiled gently. She placed a hand over his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. We're leaving, aren't we? Leo nodded. This morning, I submitted my resignation to my mother, and you don't need to return to the kitchen. Not because we're running away, but because we deserve a beginning that isn't tied to guilt or compromise. Mira nodded back, her eyes steady. All I need is you, and a little kitchen we build with our own hands. That afternoon, they packed their belongings. There wasn't much, just a few outfits, a notebook, some personal items, and the savings Leo had quietly built over the years. All of it fit into 3 small suitcases. Mira stepped out of the little servant's house and looked back at the courtyard where she had once scrubbed floors on her knees. The first roof over her head after leaving the kitchen back in Kavira. But now she left not with sadness, but with growth. As they were about to pass through the front gate, a familiar voice called from behind. Leo! Mira! Wait! They turned around. It was Mrs. Helena. She wore a simple silk dress, no pearl necklace like usual. Her face carried no arrogance, but something that resembled regret. I know, you're leaving, but before you walk through that gate, there's something I need to say. Leo nodded, his hand firmly holding Mira's. Mrs. Helena walked closer, her eyes softer than usual. Mira, I owe you an apology. Mira looked surprised but said nothing. I've grown too used to using money to control everything, so much so that I forgot there are things money can't buy, like loyalty, dignity, and genuine love. She turned to Leo. My son found someone like that, and I almost ruined it. I failed in how I raised Jason. Mira was speechless. For the first time, the woman she once feared spoke with such sincerity. If one day you ever need help, not out of obligation, but out of shared history, this door will always be open. Leo nodded, his expression softening. Thank you, Mother. Mira also gave a quiet nod. I'll never forget that this was the first roof I had. Despite what happened, I'm grateful for that. Mrs. Helena smiled, but in her smile was a sadness she couldn't hide. As they left the mansion, the sun was beginning to set. Mira sat on the back of Leo's motorbike, her arms wrapped around him. The bike carried them through windy streets, past bustling neighborhoods, and finally into a sunny alleyway. Their new rented room was on the second floor, small but bright. The landlords were a kind elderly couple. As soon as Mira stepped inside, she felt her heart lift. At last, they had a place to call home. Leo set down the suitcases and looked at her. From here on, we're starting over. From zero. Mira smiled. It's not zero. We have love. We have trust. We have a past to remember and a present to build. That's more than enough. They unpacked together, picked up a few necessities. That night, Mira cooked their first dinner in their tiny kitchen. Just a simple vegetable soup, braised fish, and steamed rice. After the meal, Leo said out of the blue, I have an idea. Let's open a little eatery. Just rustic home dishes, but cooked with the heart, like you always do. Mira's eyes lit up. I love that. Just a small place, and we'll call it a meal of love. Leo burst out laughing. That's way too long. But it's honest, Mira winked. They laughed together in that small room. No crystal chandeliers, no gold-trimmed dining tables, only laughter and dreams beginning to bloom in their tiny kitchen. That night, Mira wrote in her notebook, we are not rich, we have no power, but we have something the world longs for, the freedom to choose our own life. 3 years had passed. Mira stood before the mirror, gently adjusting the pristine white blouse she wore. On her chest was a name badge that read, Dr. Mira Sullivan, Internal Medicine. She stared at herself for a long moment. The once frail girl who had been sold like an object now stood in the locker room of a prestigious hospital, officially a resident doctor. Outside, the sound of nurses' shoes echoed. Carts rolled down the halls, and the familiar scent of antiseptic filled the air. But inside Mira, there was an overwhelming peace. Her dream had finally come true. It all began in that tiny rental room where Mira and Leo opened their first family restaurant called Mama's Country Kitchen. Just a few simple dishes: vegetable soup, braised fish, caramelized pork, but each plate was seasoned with love. Leo worked as the head chef, while Mira helped around the restaurant and studied at night in a university prep course. Customers kept coming back saying, "This place serves food and humanity." After a year, they had enough money to open a second branch. Mira passed her medical school entrance exam. No one could believe that a girl once called a burden had made it into one of the most demanding fields. But Mira didn't stop there. She studied day and night, worked part-time, and raised their child. Because yes, in her second year of medical school, she gave birth to their first son. They named him Hope, for the very thing Mira had once clung to in the darkest times. Hope in love, in kindness, and herself. One autumn afternoon after her graduation ceremony, Mira walked past the hospital gate with baby Hope in her arms, and a luxury car pulled up beside the curb. The door opened. Mira froze. It was Robert, her biological father. The once powerful man now looked frail, his hair completely white, eyes sunken, hand trembling as he held a wooden cane. "Mira." She stood still, silent. "I'm sorry." Still silence. "I didn't know what I'd lost until I saw you on TV. On that stage, wearing a white coat, becoming someone I never believed you could become." Mira gently set Hope down on a bench, then stepped forward, her expression calm. "What are you here to ask for?" "Just forgiveness, for being a foolish father, for being blinded by poverty, for turning pain into cruelty." Mira looked at him quietly. Over the years, she had learned how to forgive, not to ease others' guilt, but to free herself from the weight of hate. "I forgave you a long time ago, but I can't forget. I can't pretend the pain you caused my mother and me never happened." Robert bowed his head, tears falling. Mira slipped an envelope into his hand. "Inside is enough for you to live peacefully for a few years. I'm not giving this out of blood ties. I'm giving it to end the cycle of bitterness that's haunted our family for too long." Robert could say nothing. He held the envelope and trembled. Mira turned, picked up Hope, and walked into the hospital, like a woman who now truly belonged to a different future. That evening, Mira returned home to the villa Leo had purchased after their restaurant chain reached multi-million-dollar success. But they didn't live extravagantly. They kept the same humble lifestyle they started with. Leo was cooking in the kitchen. Hope sat nearby, stacking blocks. Mira wrapped her arms around Leo from behind and rested her head against his back. "Honey." "I saw my father today." Leo turned, slightly surprised. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, really, because I realized I no longer feel anger toward him. I've come so far now, too far to be dragged back by hatred." Leo smiled and placed a hand on her cheek. "That's my wife, the strongest, most resilient woman I know." Mira looked into his eyes and softly said, "If I had chosen Jason back then, chosen wealth, the sweet promises, I might have lived rich, but I doubt I'd have a life this peaceful." Leo gently squeezed her hand. "Thank you for choosing me, when all I had was a servant's quarters and a heart full of scars." Mira placed her hand on his chest. "And it's those very scars that told me you were real." On the bookshelf in their living room stood an old photograph, the very first photo of Mira and Leo taken in front of the little servant's house. They weren't radiant like celebrities or grand like a wedding photo, but their gaze held quiet sincerity. Below the frame, Mira had handwritten a single line: "I was once just an object in someone's eyes, but thanks to a poor man, I learned to become the queen of my own life." Final message. True love can't be bought with money, but it can rewrite your destiny. Don't choose the easy life. Choose the one who makes you stronger. And if you've ever been abandoned, remember, you don't need the past's approval to walk boldly into the glory of your future.